Donovan coming to you with another YouTube Live. If you joined us a couple of days ago, I mentioned that I was going to start doing some more YouTube Lives here and there, at least a couple of times per week. This is now our second YouTube Live, and it is a Friday. I hope all of you have some wonderful weekend plans coming our way or coming your way. I know I have some fun weekend plans coming my way, hoping to enjoy a Seahawks victory on Saturday night. But let's jump right into the weather situation here. I'm going to flip the camera around so you can see my computer screen. There it is. Now, the image I have pulled up is actually our weather cam from yesterday. And as we take a look, this was our Yakima weather cam from yesterday, I should say. And you can see some of these clouds down in the Yakima Valley with clear skies above. Now, the reason why we were seeing this kind of pattern was because of something called an inversion. Now, let's kind of talk about the inversion. And before we start talking about inversions, let's just take a look back at the satellite imagery from yesterday. You can see just so much of our area just kind of socked in with these clouds. You can clearly see that in the white color. Those clouds are really for the lower elevations, the valleys, namely the valleys and the basins. Now, excuse me. With this kind of pattern, or I should say the reason why we were seeing these clouds in the valleys and the basins was that kind of inversion I was mentioning. And what an inversion is when there is a layer of warm air over top of cold air. Typically, the atmosphere in a regular setting does like to cool with height. I think most people probably know that. But in an inversion setting, the atmosphere actually warms with height, and you can see that with a temperature profile that I'm now going to pull up. You can see a temperature profile with something known as an atmospheric sounding, and you can see soundings, or I should say typically soundings are registered with kind of weather balloons and things like that, but we also can model soundings. So I'm now going to pull up a weather model. For any weather purists out there, I understand the North American model, the NAM model, isn't necessarily our best model that we have, but it does provide some good soundings. I should note that this website I'm on is the College of DuPage website. I'm now going to generate a model sounding so we can kind of dive in to what an inversion is. And I'm picking around the Yakima area because the inversion is so clear, but this is kind of a pattern that is taking place everywhere in our viewing area. So I'm now going to pivot the camera a little bit to focus on this box over here, this kind of screen over here. Now, what we're focusing on is the red line. This is the temperature line with height. This is known as a skew T chart, and typically as the temperature gets cooler, the diagram will verge off to the left. But you'll notice that in this diagram, this red line actually starts out by going right. That means that we are warming with height. So that is that inversion layer I was talking about. Again, typically the atmosphere likes to cool with height, but in an inversion type scenario like we are in, the atmosphere is actually warming a little bit from the ground. Warming a little bit from the ground level, and that gives us that inversion. Characteristics of inversions are very stable, so they are hard to break, which is why once we kind of get into one of these patterns, they are hard to get rid of. So now that we are in the overcast conditions, it wouldn't surprise me too much if we did stay overcast for the next couple of days. And another characteristic of inversions is that it does allow pollutants to kind of build up for lower elevations. And I should note another kind of characteristic of an inversion is that they are typically pretty shallow. So if you go up in elevation at all, then you can break through it and you can end up with clear skies above the inversion, which is what we had yesterday in Yakima when we had those clear skies above kind of that cloudy layer. Now, how long is this going to stick around? How long is this pattern that is giving us these ripe inversions going to stick around? Well, as we take a look at the upper air model of the Storm Tracker Futurecast, we are in a ridging type scenario right now. That's kind of this upside down U shape. And as I let this run through, you'll notice this ridge does hold true all the way through at least Tuesday. And under a ridge, we don't get any kind of active weather that can really stir up the atmosphere or break the inversion. So it's possible that we are in this kind of cloudy, murky mess through at least the early stages of next week. Now, as we advance forward in time, it is possible that by the time we get towards the end of next week, that we could maybe start getting some active weather back into our viewing area, but that is still a week away. So it is certainly hard to tell if that's going to happen, or I should say time will only tell if that actually does happen things can certainly change a week out, but certainly up until at least Tuesday, we are going to be stuck in this inversion pattern. And I mentioned that one of the characteristics with inversions was that air pollutants are allowed to build up near the surface because we just aren't getting any atmospheric mixing. An air stagnation advisory is in place until 4 p.m. Tuesday, really for our entire viewing area, because this calm weather may support periods of reduced air quality. Just because we aren't getting any mixing of the atmosphere is not being able to cleanse itself, so we might see periods of reduced air quality. This isn't atypical for this region in January in the wintertime season, given that we are in such a valley and mountainous area. But again, that is something to be aware of, especially if you suffer from any kind of bad respiratory illnesses, that you might want to limit your time outdoors. Now let's just talk about the raw numbers. For today, we are going to see high temperatures climbing into the mid to upper 30s for the Tri-Cities, upper 30s to low 40s through the Yakima Valley, upper 30s to low 40s in the Kittitas Valley, with mid 30s coming for the Blue Mountain foothills. I do anticipate more clouds than sunshine today. A sun break or two cannot be totally ruled out, but again, I do anticipate more clouds than sunshine, and it really would not surprise me too much if we did just stay in that kind of cloudy pattern. And as we look at your weekend forecast, again, I hope everyone has fun plans coming for the weekend. We are going to stay remarkably quiet and remarkably cool. You can see temperatures only into the 30s for daytime highs on both Saturday and Sunday. And I should note that on both of these days, I do have kind of the sunbreak icon on the screen. I'm not totally ruling out some sunbreaks here and there. That's certainly not out of the question, but I do believe you will see more clouds than sunshine, and do not be too surprised if where you live, or if we do stay in overcast conditions. Again, crossing my fingers for some sunbreaks. I think most folks will be crossing their fingers for some sunbreaks, but it would not surprise me too much if we do stay overcast. Now, in terms of overnight low temperatures, we're also going to be very chilly during the overnights. Lows tonight will be dropping into the mid to upper 20s, with low to mid 20s for many of us on Saturday night, and low 20s again on Sunday night. So again, cool afternoons, cold nights, looking at more clouds than sunshine, especially down in the valleys and basins. If you get above those inversions, you might be able to see some clear skies. And now I'm going to finish it off with something that I think many folks are thinking about today, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks do play a playoff football game against the San Francisco 49ers on Saturday. It'll be the first time since 2017 that the Seahawks have a playoff game at home with fans in the stands. Avid sports fans may remember the Seahawks did play a home playoff game against the Rams, I believe, in the 2020-2021 season, but at that time there was no fans allowed in the stadium. So it's the first time since 2017 that the Seattle Seahawks are going to be playing a home playoff game with fans in the stands, as they're the number 1 seed hosting the San Francisco 49ers. Beautiful weather conditions for this kickoff if you are going to be going over to support the team. Again, bundle up, because we are going to see these temperatures in the 40s underneath mostly clear skies. But again, certainly not as terrible as the weather can be in January. Like in Chicago, for instance, they're going to have some excruciating wind chills, I believe, down to the negatives. So certainly nothing like that. And if you are staying home and maybe just supporting from your couch, or maybe going to an area restaurant or area bar to support the team, maybe to hang out with some friends, you should at least maybe take some solace in the fact that we are not going to be looking at any adverse weather conditions. So that's kind of all I have to say. Again, we're stuck in that inversion pattern. Don't be too surprised if we do see more clouds than sunshine throughout the weekend, and in fact many of us could stay overcast, but that's about it. In terms of sensible weather concerns, we're not going to be looking at any kind of big active weather coming our way over the next several days. So yeah, we're just kind of in a wash, rinse, and repeat kind of scenario. If you do want to see some sunshine, as I flip the camera around one more time, if you do want to see some sunshine this weekend, again, go to a hill, go to some higher terrain, because it doesn't take much to break above the inversion. But for those of us staying in lower elevations, I think clouds are going to be quite prominent. Anyway, I hope everyone does have a fantastic weekend coming your way. I do plan to do another one of these on Monday, so if you want to join us then on Monday. Again, typically around this time between 8 and 8:30 or so. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.